Nishant, Rohan, hi, good to have you with us. How have you been?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having us over, Ashu.
Doing good as well. Thank you. Very good to see you.
Good to see you too, guys. Guys, this is an important discussion, right? I think for a variety of reasons, right? Because one, you're of course solving a very critical problem, and that's of standardization of services, right? And in a market like India, which is not necessarily very transparent, where a lot of transactions essentially happen offline, there are many layers. It becomes important to sort of kind of uncomplicated, right? And I think that's essentially what you're solving, and you're essentially helping businesses secure those services at a much better price, right? In a transparent mechanism with clear communication process and so forth, and something that we're going to discuss through the course of the conversation. But more importantly, right, and something that I want to harp on towards the second half of our conversation is that both of you are what, 24, 25, right? Straight out of college, just about a couple of years experience, and you dived into this, right? I'm personally a big fan of entrepreneurs starting early, right? Because the growth is very different. The possibility of going out creating mistakes is you still have time to recover, right? Which is usually not the case when you're going out and doing that a little later in life, right? So I'm a big fan of that bit as well. And my sense is that by the end of this conversation, and when this conversation goes out, it's going to be a reference for many people who've been wanting to and contemplating of entrepreneurship, and have been on the fence for some reason or the other, right? With that, I'm gonna come to you, Nishant, first, right? A quick round of introduction is going to be helpful, and from there we and then Rohan to you, and then we dive into a conversation of X my B.
Thank you so much for the warm introduction, Ashu. Really appreciate the generous words. And yes, I mean, to begin with, the journey has been fascinating. And I think, God has been very kind with, what we have been able to build so far. It all started with a small vision. So, I started working with PwC India as a consultant with the government public sector, where I started an offline home decor business.
Right.
As next steps, I wanted to take my business online. And at that point of time, it took me about 40 odd days scouting on Google, LinkedIn, Facebook, friends, family, and whatnot to finally find the wrong agency for my digital needs. And I realized that for B2B products, there are n number of platforms. There's India Mart, Alibaba, you name it, we have it.
Right.
But for B2B digital services, there was absolutely no platform which was
Right.
standardized in nature, which could actually hedge my financial risk, help me discover the right kind of vendor. And that's where I thought that honestly the space needs to be solved. And
Right.
furthermore, what I also believed in was that India is the mecca of IT services, right?
Right.
And essentially the entire world wants to outsource the digital work to India. The only problem is the layer of trust, right? There's no
Right.
standardization per se. And
Right.
that is exactly where we started building Expand My Business, have raised successfully about 3 rounds of capital from very prominent investors of the industry. And
Right.
we are a young team of 70 people right now, and we are only having one mission in mind, that we will take the Indian digital services to the world. And that is essentially what we are building at XMIB right now.
Super. And we're going to cover more of that, Nishant, in just a bit, right? Rohan, I'm going to come to you. You've been on the sports side of things, right? Tell me a little more about your journey, right? College, a small stint at Adidas, right? And then X might be. Tell me a little more about it.
Going back to college, Nishant and I have known each other for about, I think, 6 or 7 years now.
Right.
And after college, I immediately had joined Adidas, and I was in the supply team over there, where we were sort of looking at the footwear that needs to be done. And we were Nishant and I were in the same city at that point in Gurgaon, and
Right.
we had decided to meet just to sort of catch up. And he had told me a little bit about this problem that he was facing. And a lot of my friends, a lot of my colleagues who are also sort of running businesses and companies, and plus in Adidas as well, I
Right.
saw that this definitely was a problem, right, when it came to the kind of work that needs to get outsourced,
Right.
right? And we decided to sort of take the plunge. And I still remember the coffee shop that we were sitting in. We decided to take the plunge over there, and we left our jobs, and we just head first we went into this problem that we were solving, because we were so focused that this really is a problem. And as in when we kept on diving deeper and deeper into it, we started speaking to more customers, potential customers, the people who are essentially anxious about getting digital problems solved. We started really realizing how big of a problem this is, and how
Interesting.
big this industry truly is. And I think what we also proudly say, like you have correctly said it yourself, we had time on our hands. We had the sort of capacity to take those kind of risks, and we always would like to sort of be a testament to any young person trying to start up and not be sort of afraid to go out and get it done. It's just a virtue of time. Eventually, some things do fall your way, and it goes well. And yeah, it's been a hell of a journey, and it's taken us a while to get here, but we made sure that when we got here the right way.
Super. We're going to cover many parts of that journey, right? I think, and I'm sure it's not been an easy one, right? And that's largely the construct of us as a country, right? We are complicated people, right? But before I come to that, right? I think this is a question that I would have asked you towards the end of our conversation, right? But I mean, taking this plunge, right? How difficult was it to convince the parents, right? I mean, the both of you are what, just about 24, 25, right? How difficult was it to convince the parents, right? Rohan, you highlighted, right? It took taking the plunge, right? Is usually the easy part of it, right? One was working with Adidas, the other one was working with PwC, right? And Indian parents have a certain thought, right? And they, of course, want a certain, and a slightly more secure future for their kids, right? I'm sure it wasn't easy, right? Tell me a little more about it, right? How difficult was it? Nishant, I'll come to you first, right? How difficult was it to convince the parents, right? Or you come from a business family where parents understood that, this is all cool.
Unfortunately, Ashu, I do not come from a business family. In fact, my parents are doctors. My sister is a doctor, and in fact, I come from a very scholarly family, to put it in the Indian terms, right? So it was very, I won't say it was difficult, right? So what had happened is, when I started my journey with PwC, things were good. Of course, it's a very cushiony job, being very candid with you, right? Things are good. I do not say that it's not difficult. It's very difficult. The working timings are probably as hard as we are working right now. But then again, there's a, safety net to it altogether. But after that, when I, while at PwC, as I was mentioning, I started building my home decor business. I started doing well there, right? So, more than what my parents felt, I was feeling in a certain way that I at least have that kind of a security in my mind that I can, come back to a corporate career when I want, if I ever have to. I can, probably build successful businesses. Of course, the scale of it was very small at, what I was doing with my home decor business. But there was a sense of conviction in myself, right? And fortunately, I have been blessed with the family where they have an openness to understand that if I am convinced about certain things, right, I have given it a solid thought. So it was not too difficult, but I think what followed was very difficult.
Interesting.
I think, if I may just state, right, so I was telling some of my teammates just a couple of days back, I said, what is difficult is not, when everybody is watching you. What is difficult is when nobody is watching us, right? And trust me, after that, for 1.5 years, it was only me, Rohan, and one of our tech guys, right? And we spent the next, probably 1.5 years without anybody watching us, right? And it was still those 15 hours of work every day, coming on time, leaving late, working hard with absolutely no expectations, no incentives, no,
But that's Nishant, that's the integrity of an entrepreneur, right? That's the integrity of an entrepreneur, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's essentially what you're kind of highlighting and referring to. And I think that's a common constant across, I think, all entrepreneurs who really make it, right? And I think that responsibility is very important, that integrity is very important, because that brings in a certain sense of responsibility, a very, very different from what you usually have, right? What you usually experience, right? Because here you have a responsibility of people who you're going to have to pay. It's a responsibility towards clients, right? It's a responsibility towards your investors and many other stakeholders who are associated with you in some form or the other, right? And I think without that, at a foundation level, it's very difficult to go out and build a credible, sustainable business, right? Is how I see it, and a valued business, right? Rohan, how difficult was you? Very quickly, how difficult was it for you to convince the parents?
It was a little tricky. Again, my mother is a teacher and my father has been in a job, and my brother works in a job as well. In the start, it was a little challenging. I'm not going to lie. Even when I was telling my father about it, he was just like, "Yeah, are you sure? Why don't you do 2 years and then you can start doing something like that as well." But it was just a matter of, I think I speak for both Nishant and me over here as well. Our parents have let us, they've given us the freedom to do a lot of things, and we've been brought up like that. So once I decided to take the plunge, I think 6 months later, it was when my dad had come to visit, and he was just sort of seeing the progress that we had made, both professionally, mentally, and in the kind of work that we were doing. I think all doubts were clear, and he was just supportive of the journey and saying, like, go for it, just be
That's
added in
amazing.
that new field.
That's amazing. That's amazing, guys. We're going to move to the serious side of the conversation, right? Now, X might be, and like I stated earlier, right? Something Nishant also alluded to, that we are solving for standardizing services, right? For many businesses, something that you experience, right? What's the construct of X might be today, right? Take me through that, Nishant. It'll be interesting to understand, right? What does the platform look like? What's the journey of a consumer? And how is it, for example? So me visibly picking up, 10 phone numbers, calling these people, mapping it out myself, right? How does this happen, right? Is there an intervention of tech that you brought into the game, or is there still a relationship game that you have, right, where you have you're remarked a relationship manager who would take care of your requirements, help you get the right partner? How does it work?
Right. So, Ashu, I'll tell you what recently one of our investors called us the urban club for B2B digital, right?
Right.
As much as nobody wants to be related to other companies, but I think that's a very fair analogy, because the way urban club solved for services market in a consumer space, it is a similar journey which we are following in the business
Right.
space, right?
Sure.
To really put it forward, right, how simple the problem is, and I'll then gradually move on to how we solve it through the platform. Today, if a business is looking to outsource their digital needs, in digital I mean either development or marketing, it is very difficult to find the right agency, right? People spend a lot of time going on Google, various social medias, and probably reaching out to their referral network, and still it is hard to identify who the right person is. And beyond that also, if you have done that, there's an insecurity of either vendor running away with the money after you have given an advance, or the other way around, where the buyer sometimes does not end up paying the money, right? So what we have done at XMyB is a very simple thing. We are a end-to-end managed marketplace for B2B digital services. What we do is, we have on the supply side, we have identified over 1,000 vendors, right? Who form a part of our supply chain. And when I talk about 1,000 vendors, these are typical mid-sized agencies, typically between 2 to 7 years old, having a turnover between the tunes of 15 lakhs to 4 CR, a typical 20 to 70 member team, that kind of a mix I'm talking about. And what happens post that also is, we do not work with any freelancers, right? So these are all auditable companies which we have on our supply side. What we do is, we have an end-to-end reference check, we have a pure tech solution around it on how we onboard them. So this is how one side of our business looks like, the supply side. When it comes to the buy side, when businesses who are looking to get this work done, they come on the platform, they post their requirement. What we have done is, we have built an in-house algorithm where the matching is done in such a way that, as per the budget, requirement, expectation of the client, we are able to shortlist the top 2-3 vendors for them. What follows is a series of communication where people have an expectation alignment. We have also built a PMP, internal PMP tool, where we align all the requirements in such a way that the manual intervention keeps getting limited, right? So Ashu, what we used to probably do about 12 months back, there was absolutely zero technology involved, right? Because at that time we were just understanding the construct of how a buyer and vendor would typically behave. 6 months down the line, right, what we understood is that this portion could be solved through tech, right? The shortlisting portion get it sorting by shortlisted by technology, right? And then as we gradually move, today even the management aspect of it, right, when the buyer has actually made the money payment in the escrow account, how the transaction is rolling out, that has also started getting done through technology, right? So what we envision to do 5 years down the line, right now as we speak, we are already present across 15 countries. There are buyers across the globe who are transacting with XMyB, right? We want to see it as a complete end-to-end tech platform, but what and how that will happen is, that will take its own sweet time, because right now a lot of vendors and buyers are experiencing this kind of a platform in the B2B e-commerce space and services for the first time. So it will take its time, but that's the evolution of the platform. And our vision is set on a day where our operations would be practically close to zero, because we have already built a solid supply chain. And even for the account management, we do not need manpower. Rather, what we need is constructive data, which we are building right now, and very strong holdings on how the PMP rolls out.
Interesting, Nishant. That's a very interesting point that you've highlighted, right? A bunch of questions on that one, right? Now, I think you kind of referred to having, basically companies, right, with some sort of a turnover, right, to come in and undertake services, right? And that's essentially your partner network. I mean, when you look at OpenClap, for example, right? I mean, given that you've referred to it, I wouldn't really consider you to be an OpenClap, right? Because I think these are independent models with independent challenges, right? But if you take that as a case in point, right? Uh, now, they started with a much larger bucket, right? Eventually, and in fact, even offering digital services stuff like that, right? And they eventually zeroed down on just about a few services, right? Because optimizing one service just takes a lot of effort, right? And on largely on just about 3 or 4 services, they've actually gone on to become which are a much larger part of their, for example, say revenue kitty, right? Have gone on to become, unicorn, right? And just slowly and steadily now kind of expanding into other pieces, right? Organizing a lot of those things. When you talk of business, right? Now business has very, very different kind of requirements, very dynamic requirements, uh, and have requirements which are, while of course they can be very clear requirements. For example, say your CA requirements or your say legal requirements or whatever, right? Or your compliance requirements. Then there are a lot of other creative requirements, right? So, for example, say digital is something that you alluded to, right? Essentially, where your journey started from. Now, that's a creative requirement. It could have a very different. I mean, I as an individual can have a very different expectation from the output. You cannot purely do it basis a selection of a vendor, right? Because it's amorphous, right? Creativity is amorphous. It's very difficult to put it under one thing, right? Uh, Ron, I'm going to come to you on this one, right? How do you undertake this, right? I mean, how do you undertake this? How do you solve for this complexity, which comes while you're solving for business, right? Of course, standardizing a service is okay. There are just about a few checkpoints that you can standardize it. You can bring in the pricing, but at the end of the day, how do you ensure that there's consistency that goes out, right? And of course, all the other challenges that I highlighted. How do you manage that, right? Because each of these services needs to be standardized at many, many levels. Um, how difficult has that been, right? And what are you doing to sort of solve that?
So, Ash, that's actually the beauty of how we work, right? I'll give you two examples. So we broadly focus on two categories. The first one being development, which includes, the websites, the applications, customs, and the second one is the marketing, which includes, like you're saying, subjective sort of amorphous details about the projects that are being done. So I'll start off with, the development part of it, right? So it's been our own learning that, when we first used to divide it up into different milestones, right? Definitely there were challenges that we used to face a year back, right? But what we realized was that when people were there's a certain process to how people are making websites, right? People don't just start off by creating a back end and creating all the sort of the end result. There's a certain flow to it, right? So they start off with, for example, design. They start off with then they implementing it on the front end, then the back end, and then so on and so forth, right? So we started getting that kind of education to our clients and to our vendors. We started streamlining that. We started making the sort of client expectations match the vendor expectations. So, for example, the website we said, okay, let us make the first milestone design based. Let us not get anything into it as well. So the moment you sort of align, with what the customer is looking at with the agency and says, okay, I don't like this, I like that, whatever it may be, the first milestone is already completed, right? Then the second part starts of it, which is a lot more objective. It becomes more binary in nature, right? Like if there's a certain sort of module that needs to be implemented, it's not key this module doesn't look good or doesn't look bad, right? It's simply, is it implemented? It's a yes or a no question. It works like that. So that is how we sort of overcame the challenge of subjectivity in let's say the development part. The second category, right, where it becomes, subjectivity is a lot more sort of available in nature. What happened is that is why I'm reiterating the beauty of our model. We don't just introduce you to just one person, right? We have a wide range of supply that that caters to the kind of client requirements that we have. So if you, Ashu, tomorrow come to me and tell me that I'm looking for a marketing gig or like a designing gig, I'm not just showing you one person. I'm showing you like 3 agencies, and you yourself come and tell me, yeah, Rohan, okay, I liked, you introduced me to these 3 guys. I like this one person because you saw his past work, you saw the portfolio, you saw the kind of design sense that he's putting in. Again, at the end of the day, it's a call that you have to take as well. It's a call that we help you take too. But that is how it happens, and we've seen a great success in the way that our vendors have been delivering the work to our clients. Yeah.
Interesting.
So that has been a learning.
Guys, I think irrespective of whatever said and done, right? I mean, India is, like I said at one of my points, right? we're a complicated market, right? We're a market which is insatiable, right? When it comes to our expectation from a vendor, right? We always want more. We're always negotiating, right? And that's the nature of us, right? Uh, what do you do to resolve conflicts, right? Because I mean, in our capacities, I'm sure each one of us knows many vendors. We work with many vendors in your business. You work with vendors. I work with vendors in my business, right? Now, the biggest of all challenges is that, like I said, right, you never satisfied, right? There's always a degree extra that you want, right? From that vendor, you always want to squeeze out that last penny, right? The value worth a penny. Uh, it's not easy, right? And I'm a lawyer as well, right? And what I sense is across a lot of these conversations that this is the common grouse, right, across service providers, right? They're constantly fighting it out, right? Because the sum of the other dispute, right? And it's not small. I mean, that's about 30% on an average of their portfolio, right? What do you do to solve that, right? Because, like I said, I mean, this is not, there is an element of creativity. It's very difficult to standardize this, right? How do you kind of take care of this conflict, right? Because it's a very fine balancing act. At an agency level, one can definitely step in and do that, right? But here you are, where you're institutionalized, you're like a marketplace, right? You don't have that scope of going out and doing it, right? Because if you possibly take a hit, the hit will eventually get passed on to a vendor who might not necessarily agree, right? So the layer of complexity that you're dealing with at that level is definitely higher than that of a vendor, right? What do you do to solve that?
Uh, Ashu, Rohan should.
No, go for it. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So Ashu, I think I completely buy into this point, right? And I myself come from a consulting background, so I completely understand how much is the expectation of a client, and how it sometimes turns out to be. And I'm not only talking about the small buyers, small vendors, big buyers, big vendors, everybody. And interestingly, it's not only present in India, it's pretty much global. As much as we can say India is a complex country, but I have dealt with so many global clients, and at the end of it, I can tell you that almost 80% of the clients are similar in nature, right? 20% are the lucky ones, right? So when we are talking about the 80% of these clients, right, actually this is exactly what we are trying to solve for right now. What has happened is, with each transaction which goes through the platform, right, there are a lot of learnings to be taken place, and I'm not talking about emotional learnings, I'm talking about technology learnings, right? Data makes us very strong, right? What has happened is, with we have dealt over 1,000 clients right now in a short span of about 2.5 years, right? And in certain verticals, right, in certain microservices, we started noticing patterns, right? Patterns in terms of deliverables, in technologies, in outcomes, and everything. So what we have started doing is, slowly and steadily, whatever were those factors which could be standardized per se, right, we have already started standardizing them. And we have actually seen our NPS has gone up, our turnaround time has gone up, gone down, our delivery time has gone down, because what is happening is, slowly and steadily, we are even standardizing expectations. The concern kicks in when the expectations are not standardized, right? And this is why, till date, if you look at the wider space of it, in products, a lot of marketplaces have been able to do well. But while in services, there have been very few names, right? Even if I'm talking about consumer level services, I can probably come up with a couple of names, but out of which one is Urban Clap. Because what Urban Clap did, look, again, if I draw a parallel, I know I'm not supposed to do this, but if I draw a parallel, they are sending somebody to, cut my hair. There could be varied expectations around that also. But they have, what they have done is they have standardized the time, they have standardized the, basic kits, the barber will be using, and certain other things. That is essentially what we are doing at XMIB. And how that is being done is, with repeated transactions coming in, right? We are working on patterns. And then with the kind of vendor pool we are working with, we have a very, very strong hold on the kind of vendor pool. That's why, in the starting itself, I mentioned, we neither work with freelancers, and, even with the kind of vendors who want to be associated with us. Ashu, I'll tell you a very interesting fact. Right now on my back end, I have over 7,000 vendors who want to be listed with XMIB. And we have over 1,000 shortlisted, and we are only actively working with about 250 of them. That's the kind of club we want to work with, right? We want to work with the top vendors. And by top, I do not mean that, there are 100 CR business. No, I probably mean they might be a 50 lakh business, because that's the kind of pool we are looking to work with. And I think recently, the success of companies like Zetwork, right? I don't know if you have followed Zetwork closely. I think the biggest reason why they're absolutely going on and making an impact in the market is because I think the kind of hold these guys have on their supply, right? So what I always believe is it's a supply-led demand,
Right.
and for us to actually, match these expectations, we are slowly and steadily going to align the supply in certain way,
Right.
and through technology, standardize the level of expectations going
Prashant,
forward.
I understand where you're coming from, right? And I
Yeah,
completely support you, right, as far as that is concerned. But in India, in a market like India, right,
yeah,
supply is not really the challenge, right? How do you kind of sort out that supply is really the big challenge, right? I mean, I think because every business, right, we're largely a service-oriented economy. We're not a very manufacturing-driven economy, and that's also
right,
because of a low savings base, right? That essentially means that people are dependent on formal credit to go out and set up industries, which unfortunately in our financial system has been weak, right? We
right.
haven't built models to make liquidity available for people to go out and set up these factories, and then services becomes an automatic go-to because it's a low capex play, right?
Yeah,
Uh, Supply is not a challenge, right? You can maintain a quality as well. I'll come to that in a bit, right? Now, but when you compare yourself, and this is a more important point, right? Now, when you compare yourself with an urban clap, right? It's an unfair comparison, right? Because there I am doing personal care services, right? And services that are personal to say my household, right, or the hygiene of my household, right? Um, Now there is a factor of disposable capital, right, and my preferences in terms of what do I want to consume, right? And I would not necessarily look at it from a cost standpoint. I would look at more from a reliability standpoint. I would look at from say a hygiene standpoint, cleanliness. There are multiple other factors that start coming in, right? And the decision maker is usually one, right, at best. And these are very small ticket services, all right, with high consistency, high repeat, so on and so forth. In your business, right, which is more business focused, right, the profitability of your client is dependent on how much can he or she squeeze out of the vendor, right? Cost of operations is something that they constantly want to cut down, right? Which essentially means that you're operating in a very, very different terrain, and that's the reason I don't compare you with, an urban clap or any of such players, right, who are in that terrain. I want to understand how do you basically manage that, right? Because, like I said, you are sitting in the middle of a buyer who's constantly trying to, squeeze costs, right? There is a supplier, right, who's on the other side of it. Outside of you, he or she would have charged whatever they would have wanted to. With you coming in and say bringing in 70 people team, 80 people team, there is a certain cost structure that you're building to that entire thing, right? The the services become expensive, right, in the process. What I want to understand is what becomes the differentiator in the process, right? Right, because like I said, the expectations are very, very different, right? How do you tackle those expectations where people are looking for, of course, they're looking at reliability, they're looking at good quality, and like I said, they're looking at creative solutions which are not necessarily definable. There's a huge amount of subjectivity, something Rohan alluded to. What happens in an environment like that, right? How do you ensure that all of this happens at the right price? Because, like I said, right, the profitability of that business is dependent on how sharply are they able to squeeze out, like I said, the last penny out of that deal. How does that happen?
Ashu, so I'll tell you something very interesting here,
Sure.
right? So in our domain, it came as a surprise to me as well. Actually, with an XMIB coming into the ecosystem,
Right.
the purchase price has gone down, and there's a very interesting, science behind that.
Okay.
If you look at a small time agency, right? Let me put things into perspective.
Sure.
Let me talk about an agency which has annual turnover of, let's say, about 40 lakh rupees. They have
Right.
a 12-member team, right? So for them, the essence is to acquire buyers, right?
Mhm.
So there are two ways in which this typically happens. One is online customer acquisition cost, right, which could be spending on Google or other social media, right? That's how it happens. And the second is building a BD team, right?
Right.
So typically for a 40 lakh turnover company, it is very difficult to be deploying capital on their online marketing to actually attract a lot of customers when there are bigger players sitting out in the market. You cannot be competing with people who have a spend of, let's say, 10 lakh a month or a 20 lakh 1 month on Google marketing when your agency's turnover itself is about 40 lakh rupees, right?
Right.
So that is a big customer acquisition cost for them when you look at the metrics around that.
Mhm.
Second problem for them is hiring BD resources, right? Because of course converting a client on the services side does involve a lot of BD effort, right? And sometimes, as businesses keep scaling up, it is beyond the promoters to do it as well. They need a team, right? And today, on average, if I count a cost of an average BD resource, right, it is somewhere in the tunes of 5 to 7 lakhs. Like that's an average what I'm talking about right now, right? The problem is, the fundamental problem is the cost of these services are bound to go up because they are spending a lot of these vendors are spending a lot of capital to acquire the client, right? Just imagine if I take both these things out of the equation for them, they neither have to spend on their online marketing to acquire buyers, nor do they have to spend on the BD spend. The only thing they have to spend on is their development team, their design team to actually deliver work. Are you getting my point?
I am.
So in the process, what has happened is earlier, let's say, to acquire a client, they had to spend, let's say, 10,000 rupees or 20,000 rupees per se, right, on one acquisition. Right now, they don't have to do it because a platform named XMyB has already done it, right? And the only thing they're bound to do is deliver that work. So that is where the bargain for price comes into picture for a platform like us. And second thing, what has started happening is currently there are, I think, about 45 businesses, vendors from across tier 2s and tier 3s, right? For whom 80% of their business is coming through XMyB, right? So slowly and steadily, they've started understanding that the only thing we have to do is deliver. Business will keep coming, right? And trust me, as a promoter-driven business, right? Because I've been part of one, the biggest insecurity is that my business should not die out, right? These are not VC-backed businesses that somebody will keep pumping in millions of dollars of cash. They are typical businesses where they have to, run a show, give salaries, give their capex cost, opex cost, whatever, and then take money back and earn bread and butter for their family, right? What I'm ensuring through XMyB is that if you are that pool of vendors, we will make sure that you're constantly getting business. Are you getting my point? So in this process, at least the vendors on that side have that kind of an extra leverage when it comes to pricing. That is where the buyers benefit out of us, right?
Interesting.
If you go out directly to a vendor, they might probably quote you 1 lakh rupee. If you come through XMyB, they might be probably quoting you an 80,000 rupees because that's the kind of bargain power we have on our platform as well, right?
Interesting. Nishant, how do you ensure that these vendors are sticky with you, right? Because at the end of the day, like you said, right, they're running it's largely a promoter-driven business. It's a much smaller unit, right? Where there's just about 5, 6, 7 people working, right? And that's a typical agency, right? Who there are many other marketplaces. There are other marketplaces that are coming up, right? How do you ensure that these vendors stick with you, right? Because they're eventually looking at business, right? There's somebody like you who's coming in and who's saying that, listen, no more marketing costs, no more business development costs. I'm your go-to guy. 20, 30%. I'm going to take it away from whatever business that you generate. What creates the stickiness, right? Rohan, if you want to answer that.
So, Ashu, how I look at this is also about the fact that, vendors, they like agencies, they too face this problem, right? Like Nishant is correctly saying, the cost of BD and the cost of technology that they use to acquire customers, that is a very big sort of cost for them. You must understand that these guys are not just working on 1, 2 projects with us. They're working on multiple projects. They themselves, now they're getting about 70% of their business just from XMyB. There's a very, very big important factor over here. We're not giving them irrelevant clients, right? That is another very big plus that we are doing. It's if someone is building a website for 1 lakh, we're not giving him clients that are looking for websites to be built at 20,000, and vice versa, not giving him clients that are looking for websites to be built 20 lakh, right? So that is a very, very big sticky point that we have, that why they want to work with us. Secondly, like we had already mentioned, since a lot of their business is now coming through us, there's no, they don't want to risk that by doing anything that might put this relation in jeopardy. Primarily because of this has become like their primary source of income for their business as well. So these two are some very, very big important factors that we use to keep in supply. And apart from that, of course, small factors such as your relationship management, how we sort of continue incentivizing them to do business over our platform, and the kind of value that we provide as well in terms of the escrow mechanism that we have to make sure that their payments are getting secured, right? That is a very, very, very big point of why vendors continue using XMyB and love interacting with us and getting clients through XMyB as well.
Interesting. I think there are a lot of escrow solutions that are coming up, right? And they're essentially empowering a lot of, say, for example, freelancers and agencies to secure their payments, right? And my sense is, I think that's a while of course that's a very significant feature that is there on your platform, right? I think I think those are options that are now getting democratized, right? People can actually choose for those options. But we're going to save some of this. I mean, I have many questions on this particular bit, right? And I understand, right? There are no clear answers, right? I mean, this is an ongoing challenge, right? That you have to solve for. I mean, you can't really shackle somebody to come in and work with you perpetually, right? You have to incentivize them. You have to, bring in that relationship depth, right? Which is very critical. You have to give them diversity of business, and these are some very, and I understand. I think this is possibly one of the biggest challenges in your business, right? Where you have to keep them, engaged, right? Because on one side you have to manage your acquisition, on the other side you have to give them assignments, and this is a difficult one to sort of always balance. Gentlemen, I'm going to move to a slightly more, slightly different question, right? Which is more about competition, right? Now, what we are seeing is that there are many platforms that are coming up, and these are platforms that are essentially democratizing availability of resources, right? So gig is what we're kind of talking about, right? And there are many gig platforms that have come up internationally. Some of them actually gone on to get listed, and are extremely sharp, right, in terms of what they're offering and stuff like that. And the role is kind of in a way defined, right? They're not necessarily getting in deeper into the execution side of it, right? It's just about discovery of two parties eventually who will make a deal, and the platform has a limited role to play, right? So you're going a step further. But we are seeing a lot of such platforms coming up with specialized services, right? So while of course you are offering a stack, right, you're more horizontal in nature. Some of these platforms are more vertical in nature, right? And they've been able to garner some absolutely phenomenal business. Implementation of technology, for example, has been very sharp across some of these businesses. There is an application of AI, ML, which is happening, and some of these businesses actually gone on to raise much larger rounds of capital and stuff like that, right? And independently, they possibly worth the market size would be billions of dollars, right, for such services, especially in a post-COVID environment. What do you make out of it, right? I mean, given that you're choosing to work with agencies, right? And like I said, right, agencies typically have a certain structure. That structure is to essentially ensure consistency in business, right? A world is moving towards gig, right? Where a lot of people are being brought in, right? And creativity has become a very key defining factor. Your platform, because of the construct that it is more skewed towards ensuring that there's optimal pricing which is available, right? There's transparent pricing which is available. And that possibly is also your core proposition, right? But these are platforms where a lot of these creative guys are coming in, they're demonstrating what they're doing. A lot of them are using platforms, open source platforms like Instagram to demonstrate what they're doing. They're getting a lot of work from there. What happens in an environment like that, right? What's and how are you going to factor that in, right? I mean, how do you factor that in, right? Because you've consciously chosen not to have gig, for example, independent workers, right? Freelancers to come in and work with you. At some point in time, do you start factoring that in? Because they could possibly offer lower costs. That essentially means that your clients become more competitive in the process. What's your sense of it?
Ashu, so my take on this is very, I think it's very binary, right? Now,
Okay.
The point here is, what I understand of it is that what's the target group we are going after, right?
Right.
An average order value on our platform, right, is close to 1.5 lakh rupees INR, right? Whereas if you look at the gig economy, right, it is lower than, I think, probably lower than $150 on an average, right? That is what I've learned from, a lot of reports which are suggestive of that.
Mm-hmm.
So my entire understanding is, first of all, the type of buyers who we work with, right? Now, what typically happens is, let's say if a medium level business, first of all, when I talk about my addressable market, we are just not talking, Kirana stores are not our buyers, right? Some of them have come and transacted with us, but still they are not our buyers. Neither are the ITCs or the India Todays or the Tata Powers of the world our buyers. They have also come and transacted with us, but they are not our target group, right? Our target group is right there in the middle, right? The community of traders, manufacturers, service providers, right? Who are looking to move their business digital, right? Now, what happens in the process is, typically, if the average size is suggested, the average order value is about 1.5 lakh rupees INR, what that clearly suggests is that people are leaning towards quality sometimes over price, right? They would rather want to deal with the platform where they are actually getting a better supply as compared to saving a lot of costs. I sometimes in our interaction with a lot of buyers, it's a very honest opinion that we share, that if you are actually looking for something absolutely low, we are not the right platform, right? We are absolutely not the right platform. So there's a, our target group, even when we are moving overseas, right? Like as we speak, we are opening our first global office in Dubai. So we have seen a lot of international traction, right? And even on the international front, right? Countries like Dubai, US, especially US, right? We have such a big buyer base from US. They have all been through a journey where gig economy was very, very prevalent even 5 years back, right? India is just starting to realize that the gig economy is there, but in countries in the western part of the world, it was a very prominent culture. They choose platforms like ours over, the popular ones. I'm sorry to name, like Upwork, Freelancer, and all these platforms. They like to choose an XMyB, very well knowing the proposition of these platforms, because the point is the world is moving towards an era of fulfillment, right? And if anything, what we have to do, I mean, I'm drawing a very, very, vague parallel, if I can say, but I think the journey of Zomato has been very inspiring. They started with just, brochures, which was discovery, just to put the digital menu. They moved towards decision with reviews and recommendations. And in the end, today they are an end-to-end delivery platform, right? They make sure that the food reaches your home. So what we are doing is, because we want to ascertain that kind of a quality on our platform, and at XMyB, we want to be associated with transparency and quality, right? We are not in that drum of, giving the cheapest service available, because we understand, right? In India, there are, freelancers or service providers who can do it at absolutely dirt cheap prices, but that's not our target segment. We are going towards a very mid-level segment of market.
But Nishant, essentially, what you're kind of alluding to, right? So anybody savvy, smart, who's been consuming a lot of these services, there are two ways to look at it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of your consumers are possibly first-time buyers of these services, and that's the reason they're choosing you, right? Because they're not very sure, in terms of how to define those, say the parameters, right? To buy those services. I think that's one. Second is, there are possibly people who burn their hands, right? That they actually went onto these platforms, they burned their hands, and they said, "Listen, we need somebody else to sort of take care of this." But what the underlying of that is that we don't want to run that risk again, right? We need somebody to come in and handle that conflict for us, or a potential conflict for us, right? What that essentially means is that a lot of your business construct, or the framework that your business is built on, right, could be under tremendous amount of stress. Maybe not today, right? Because you're fairly early, right, in your journey. You just got 2.5 years. But as you expand, a lot of this conflict could actually be a lot of this entire risk, that the delivery risk that happens, right, in fulfillment, will essentially be passed on to you, right, as the middle layer. That just makes your scaling difficult beyond a certain point. How do you look at that, right? I mean, is there a conscious way you are kind of addressing that? Because standardization is one side of it, like I said, right? And in an environment of business, one is constantly motivated to reduce costs, right? I mean, of course, you're comparing, Zomato with yourself and Urban Club. We kind of compared earlier, but I think these are essentially people who are catering in a personal environment, right? And I think here it's a business environment. Are you preparing yourself for a lot of this conflict which is going to happen? And I come back to this point again, right? Because every single point that you kind of highlighted essentially takes me to that, right? And like I said, there are only two conditions that this is possible in. What's your sense of it? Are you preparing yourself? How are you preparing yourself to tackle these conflicts that could arise in future?
100%, Ashu. I agree with that. And today as we speak, right, we are optimizing not only processes when it comes from an operational point of view, but also from a legal point of view, right? So what we have done is we have strong legal structures in place, right? Everything is safeguarded. And why we are putting that kind of a mechanism in place is simply because, what you mentioned, as we scale, these problems, probably are bound to go up. Right now, I'll be very honest, right? For us, the SIC rate or the NPA amongst the client is less than 0.5%, right? So that what essentially means is, out of the 1,000 plus clients we have dealt with, there have been only probably 4 crash cases. Are you getting my point? So that's too low a rate right now, right? But what we also foresee in the future is, as we go from a journey of 1,000 to 100,000, and probably from 100,000 to 1,000,000, right? The challenges are going to be different, right? So as we recently, started scaling up, what we have done is we have brought all the legal structures in place, how the potential lapses could look like, right? How that could be taken care of. And all those things are lined very, very properly, because as we speak, right, Ashu, I mean, we are not doing this to run a business for 2 years, 3 years, right? We are
Right.
building this for a lifetime.
Absolutely.
And
Right.
for what the couple of parallels which I use, Urban Clap and Zomato, right? Yes, people do compare us, but what I want to be compared with, we want to be called the Alibaba of digital services, right? We will be the platform which will lead this evolution of taking the Indian IT vendors to the globe, right?
Super.
Through this platform. And essentially, when I am talking about a scale of, Alibaba, right? The essence is that we have to hold something, right? That is our moat. The stress which you are talking about, that is actually our moat going forward also. Because what I always compare it with is that there's an India Mart and there's an Alibaba, right? Essentially, they are both into B2B products.
Right.
What India Mart did wonderfully well was discovery, right? I completely agree with it that they have, but today they are at $1 billion valuation, and then Alibaba is at a $800 billion valuation. The fundamental difference amongst both of them was Alibaba held the transactions. Alibaba had that liability. Of course, at scale, it was very difficult. Of course, it was going to be, the harder part, and that could have been done in a very simpler way had they just made a discovery platform out of it. But the 800x of difference at that scale is because the moat for them is that they will take my stress away, right? And I'll tell you, this is my personal belief. When I was building my home decor business, I was more comfortable transacting through Alibaba than through India Mart. What more, right? So,
I think that's a controversial point, right? But I think, and we'll possibly save it for another conversation, right?
Yeah.
Rohan, I think you wanted to make a point.
Yeah, so Ashu, you must understand, like, the reason for why we draw parallels, right, is to tell you that there has been a difference in the customer mindset as well, right? You talk about Urban Company. I mean, you were getting your haircuts, your plumbers and all. You were getting it early also, right? Be it Yellow Pages, be it through the guard who was downstairs at your house. Same with Zomato. You're being able to order food online as well. What they brought about was a change in mindset and how the customer looked at how the problem was being solved, right? Today, you ask the same question about 5 years back, I would never have ordered food on Zomato. But today, I don't think you go to a customer and be like, will you not order food on Zomato? Like, nah, even if they're doing it outside, I'll still order on Zomato just because I have the kind of that safety, right? So even how we are looking at this problem, right? We're not saying that today the problem has been solved, because if it has, then XMAB wouldn't be existing. But what we are doing is we are putting our best efforts at attempting to solve this problem.
Absolutely.
And that includes educating the vendors, educating the clients, more importantly, that listen, it's not ki ye pehle bhi aise chalta tha. Abhi there's a new wave, right? There's a new way of how you must approach services. It's not the same how it was earlier, right? So we're bringing about that kind of mindset change. It will take time. If these things don't happen overnight, they take more than years, right? But we have seen a slow trend. The kind of process that we are implementing, the kind of vendors that we are onboarding, right, and the way that the projects are being delivered, we are seeing a small gradual change. We are seeing people understand our pitches when we sell them XMAB a lot clearer and a lot easier as well, right? So we have been seeing that change, and it's going to be an everlasting journey of perfecting this solution. There is definitely customer.
I like the way you put it, Rohan. I like the way you put it, right? That this is not something, and I mean, we're a large market globally when you start looking at, I think something Nishant has alluded to, right? You have global aspirations, right? And as soon as you start factoring that in, I think there are many other challenges that starts coming in, right? And I think this is possibly the way to sort of, looking to solve that market, right? I think it's a slow, painful process where you need to be extremely consistent, right? You might not have the market on day one, but gradually you will. People will look for reliability over. And in the meantime, a lot of your backend is going to get streamlined, right, to help them visualize, the overall delivery better, and so on and so forth, right? But we are in an environment where we are funded, right? There are always numbers to achieve, and I know it's a difficult one, right? In that sense, guys, I'm going to move to a happier side of the conversation, right? I think a lot of deep diving that we've done, and of course, this is a conversation that can go on because there are many challenges. It's not one size fits all. It doesn't work in services industry, right? Everybody has different expectations. What are the next 2 years like, right? I would have loved to ask you a 5-year question, but unfortunately, we're in such times where at best you can plan for next 18-24 months, and I'll be realistic with that. What are the next 24 months like, Nishant?
So objectively putting, Ashu, the next 24 months look like very simple for us. I think today we are at 1,000 clients. We want to deal with at least 100,000 clients over the next 2 years, right?
Wow.
We want to be globally present across we are already present across 6 continents in terms of presence, but we want to have our establishments in 4 more demographies, which we are very clear with. We are targeting Middle East for this quarter. By Q2 2022, we should be in US, followed by Europe and Australia. So this is how we are looking at a global presence. And in terms of numbers, strong plans to raise capital, and conversations have been going well. And I think as much as I hate to say it, but the byproduct should be a unicorn by the end of 2 years. And but essentially that is not where the eyes are set. The eyes are set to actually make a solution which is everlasting and could be used globally by a lot of buyers. And in the end, again, this is something I have been very, very passionate about, which also brings to the quality point in. We are not looking to work with 100,000 vendors or 10,000 vendors. What we want to do essentially in the next 2 years is pick best 500 vendors in a certain pool and make their businesses $1 million business, right? That makes us $1 billion business. So that is essentially where the eyes are set. And I think tangibly, that's how the next 2 years look at.
Interesting. Rohan, you want to add to that?
No, yeah, I think, Ashu, we have these discussions on a pretty daily basis.
Interesting.
What we're speaking about in terms of, what we're looking at 2 years, we're very much aligned.
It's good to see both the founders on the same page, right? It's heartening at a certain level, and not that we see it very often, right? Because, everybody comes with his or her set of experiences, right? And I think there is this intense deliberation which happens, right? But good to see both of you on the same page, and I think it's a lovely aspiration, right, Nishant, of what you kind of laid out. I think a unicorn is a byproduct, honestly, right? I think it's the journey that I think any entrepreneur who is in it has the fun building, right? If you ask me, and I think that's been classical for every single founder who's gone on to become a unicorn, right? It's the process that they've loved, right? It's the intensity of the process that they've loved. Rona, I'm going to come to you for the last question, right? Nishant, you can add on. Guys, 23, 24, possibly 22 when you started, right? And now at 24, 25, right? Fairly young, very little experience, right? Going on building this, right? But I think the both of you, across this conversation, what has been, I think, absolutely clear and heartening, right, is the integrity and the intensity and the honesty with which you're building it, right? And you don't have clear answers to everything, which is, I think, the case in any founder's journey, right? But you have to kind of be smart enough to accept saying that, listen, this is something that I understand, and this is something that I don't understand, or we're going to go on to solve this, right? I would, how difficult or easy has been for you to sort of go out and raise capital? And I would want you to give out some very important points for many youngsters who aspire to build their own, own organization, right? I mean, I'm a fairly I'd say not 24, right, in that sense. Come in with a little bit more seriousness. I understand, the mindset, right? But I think what you put out can actually help a lot of youngsters understand the seriousness with which money needs to be handled, right? So what's been your fundraise journey like? And, what are some of the key takeaways, right, for many of these guys who can, who are building enterprises, are looking to raise capital, right, that they could, you would want to share with them?
So I mean, personally, our first 2.5 years, right, it was spent being as frugal as possible, to be very honest with you, right? We valued every single rupee, and till date we still do, right? I think once you understand what is the true value of how hard it is to earn that first rupee from your customer, right? That is the day when you realize that, okay, before I'm spending any money on anything else, right? You think like 3-4 times. Another takeaway that I would also say very strongly is, like you're correctly saying, Ashu, the seriousness in what you need to have while raising rounds. It's not an easy task, right? Nishant and I don't come from backgrounds where we are, extremely scholared or educated with, major degrees or some, 10, 15 years of experience, or we're coming where it's easier to raise sort of capital for us. It has been a challenge, right? And it's going to continue being a challenge for many first-time founders who are approaching this for the first time, right? But I think what has really helped us is that we've always sort of stuck true to what it is that we want to solve. We've been able to sort of explain it, and the best part is that we have proof of why it's working and why it doesn't work. right? We've understood the problem deep enough. We will never go and solve address a solution before we understand the problem entirely itself. So that is something that has really helped us in our fundraise, the clarity of the problem and the clarity of the solution that we are providing. So that would be my biggest advice, and that comes at whatever age it might be, right? Be it 22, be it 50, be it whatever. The problem that you are solving, right? It should really be something that is a gap, and the solution that you're providing should really address it. And apart from that, of course, building warm relations, getting referrals, these things always go a long way in raising capital. But yes, there are challenges. We're not going to be naive to it. I'm not going to paint a picture saying, hey, it's all hunky dory. In fact, when money comes, actually, that's when the pressure starts increasing. We always used to joke about this, saying, "Yaar, bahut pressure hai, fundraise ek baar ho jayega, it'll be a lot better." But it's actually vice versa. Once the money comes in, it surmounts in an amount of pressure on your head. But again, I think like we started the first line of of the entire conversation was that's the stint of being an entrepreneur. That's the kind of challenges that you got to take head on, and of course, making sure that you admit to what it is that you don't know, getting the people for it. Nishant and I, we fall back on each other very, very often, right? It's absolutely okay, because it's always better to work together as a team than work individually and go forward. So I would always recommend working with.
Ron, I was just picking it up from how you calibrate, right? How you engineer an organization, right? From a cost standpoint. I was speaking with the founder, right, some time back, right? And he said that, listen, I think all we had was $50,000, right? So all our operations were essentially calibrated for that 50,000 to survive us for 2 years, right? And all of a sudden, right, bam, you have $5 million, right, in our account, and we didn't know what to do with that, right? We were like kind of overwhelmed, flabbergasted to an extent, right? What do we do now, right? And I think that's absolutely true, and I think a lot of what you kind of highlighted in the process is absolutely correct, right? I think that sharpness is very, very important. Nishant, the earlier question was to be my last one, right? But I'm going to actually come to you, right? Hiring a team is a massive challenge, right? Bringing in right kind of people is always very difficult, right? For them to buy into your vision. I think that's very, very critical for the journey of any business, right? How easy or difficult has that been, right? And what is your takeaway for many of the guys who are going to be watching this?
Right. So
are you under the pressure, right? As the founder promoter, right? Are you under the pressure of being the smarter one all the time?
I'm sure that's the joke in the organization. I'm one of the least smart people in the company, and I'm happy enough to claim it. And so what I felt over the last 2 years, building a very loyal set of people, right? And I'll tell you what, these are conversations which keep on happening in probably all early stage organizations, right?
Right.
What kind of people do you choose?
Sure.
Our biggest validation, I think for me and Rohan has been that people have not left us, right? There have been people from day one who have, like, typically at XMIB, nobody has left the company, right? Wow. There have been times when we were not able to give the salary for 3 months. And then there were, these 22, 23-year-old guys who put their hand up and said, you don't have to worry about the salary thing. Right. We are there, right? That's the only thing you need as founders, right? So I think as important as it is, I typically put it like this, right? As important as it is to be obsessed with your client, right? Like, we are a client obsessed company. We want to listen to what they say. We are obsessed to our team as well, right? We back individuals. You might do well, you might fail. If we are building that kind of a conviction in you, we will back you for the longest time, right? You can falter, you can do whatever, but I think where this has essentially come in is we look for high intent individuals, right? I'm not talking about high intellect. I'm not looking for high smartness, high function. It's all okay, right? Because almost 8 out of 10 functions can be built, right? Probably apart from tech, tech functionality fits. I think most of the other fits are something which can be built over time, right? So the only focus I have is high intent individual. In fact, I'll tell you what, people who write on their form that, I'm willing to work 24 hours, I usually place their interview at 2 o'clock in the night or 3 o'clock in the night, right?
Interesting.
I want to check if you're actually saying that you are happy to work for 24 hours. And, that's the kind of, and if you look at the L1 right now at XMIB, right? They are people who carry the flag higher than probably the two of us, right? They are the people who are the flag bearers of XMIB. And that's what is heartening to see. And,
Super.
You can probably kid around, what we are building sometime with us, but there's a team out there, you cannot do that. Like, they are proactively like, this is what we are building, and people have seen impact. Like, we have seen what the impact is when these guys hear the buyers talking good things and how XYB has changed their life. Let's talk impact. And all these people from the best background, the smartest people to work with, they're all the people who are looking forward to work for an impact. And I think that is what the biggest opportunity has been. And as we keep on building the team, we have actually been able to build a star team. Even our investors have told us that companies who have raised way higher capital than us have not been able to build this kind of a team, because we have been able to build it because our integrity is very high,
right.
Our passion is high, our vision is clear where we want to be, and then we back individuals to do it right. We will not interfere. You might do a blunder out there, we will still back you. So that's our DNA of the team. And if you come into the XYB office, right, you'll feel that vibe. Like people are super energetic.
Lovely. Rohan, Nishant, it was a pleasure to have both of you with us, right? And how I want these conversations to go on, right? I love this energy. I love this the intensity, right? And I think one thing which stands out for the both of you, I mean, you possibly the most challenging business, right, that could ever be created, right? But I think it's an important problem to be solved, right? A lot of standardization needs to happen. Can that happen? Can that not happen? I mean, the jury's out, right? I think it's always going to be very difficult, right? To sort of bring people's subjectivity in a standardized form, right? In a boxed form. I think it's always going to be difficult, right? But I think one thing which kind of stands out in the process is how the two of you are building this organization, right? To me, what I think my takeaway in this conversation is essentially the integrity and the honesty with which you're kind of building it, right? And more importantly, how you're cultivating that ethos in the organization, right? Nishant, your last point about cultivating the team and backing the team, I think the two of you together reflect of a maturity of if not more, but a 40-45-year-old, right? And clearly not the 24-year-olds. And I think this is an important takeaway for many of the people who are going to be watching this, right? And especially youngsters who aspire to set up their own organizations, right? It's important to be at it. It's important to have right people in it. It's important to have very motivated set of team members, right? Who are willing to contribute even higher than the cause of the founder and the promoter, right? And I think by the end of it, it's the journey that you have to love, right? It's the process that you have to love. I think everything else is an incidental, be it the valuation, be it the unicorn status, whatever, right? I think if you can go back and sleep well with a happy customer, I think that's essentially what you'll be focusing on, right? Eventually, that will bring in more and more customers. That will bring in the consistency. It'll bring in the sustainability, right? Irrespective of, and eventually the profitability, right? And I think that's been a challenge for many people, right? But guys, thank you so much. It was an absolutely phenomenal conversation. Loved every bit of this conversation. I wish there are many more founders like the two of you who come up at that age. I think we're going to be different nations, right? And I wish you guys all the very best. I think you have a much larger responsibility apart from building XYB, and that is to inspire many youngsters to go out and build credible businesses, right? And go out and give employment, right? Which is just so much more important. Thank you so much for taking the time out and doing this.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure was
Thank
ours.
you. It was an absolute pleasure to be speaking with you. And this is one of the, best conversations I've ever had, because it captured so many aspects. And on the last note, right, for everybody who watches this, yes, the market is difficult and we are not the lucky ones. We are the chosen ones to be solving for this market. So,
Right.
that's my leaving part on this.
Super. Thank you guys. Bye.
All right.
Take care,
Bye.
Ashu.
Good
It
day.
was a pleasure
Yeah.
speaking to you.